right, everybody, we're live. We're live. All right, audio live. All right, thank you everybody for joining us. We don't have video today, but we do have audio. We're going to be in Numbers chapter 4, verse 21 through Numbers chapter 7, verse 89. Go ahead and start us with prayer. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming, joining us with the Torah, online or audio and here present. Father, we just thank you for your Shabbat. We thank you for a peaceful Shabbat, a beautiful day, and thank you for everybody that's here and everybody that's listening. Pray that your Spirit would be with us and minister to us, Father. Teach us something new today. Reveal to us something new out of your word, Father. So we do thank you for your word. Thank you for your Sabbath. And we just lift this day up to you and lift this study up to you in Yeshua's name. Amen. 21.
All right, Numbers chapter 4. We'll start with verse 21. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Take a census also of the sons of Gershon by their father's house, by their clans. Register them from 30 years old and above, even to 50 years old, all who enter to perform the service, to do the service in the tent of appointment. This is the service of the clans of the Gershonites in serving and in bearing burdens. They shall bear the curtains of the dwelling place and the tent of appointment with its covering of fine leather that is on it, covering for the door of the tent of appointment, and the screens of the courtyard, and the covering for the door of the gate of the courtyard, which is around the dwelling place and slaughter place, and their cords, all the equipment for their service, and all that is made for them, so shall they serve. At the mouth of Aaron and his sons is all the service of the sons of Gershonites, all their burden and all their service. You shall appoint to them all the duty of all their burden. This is the service of the clans of the sons of Gershon in the tent of appointment. Let their duties be under the hand of Ithamar, son of Aaron the priest. As for the sons of Merari, register them by their clans and by their father's house. Register them from 30 years old and above, even to 50 years old, all who enter the service to do the work of the tent of appointment. And this is the duty of their burden, according to all their service for the tent of appointment, boards of the dwelling place, and its bars, and its columns, and its sockets, and the columns around the courtyard with their sockets, and their pegs, and their cords, with all their equipment and all their service. And assign to each by name the equipment of the duty of their burden. This is the service of the clans of the sons of Merari, as all their service for the tent of appointment, under the hand of Ithamar, son of Aaron the priest. So Moshe and Aaron and the leaders of the congregation registered the sons of the Kehathites by their clans and by their father's house, from 30 years old and above, even to 50 years old, all who entered the service for work in the tent of appointment. And their registered ones by their clans were 2,750. These were the registered ones of the clans of the Kehathites, all those serving in the tent of appointment, whom Moshe and Aaron registered according to the mouth of Yahweh by the hand of Moshe. And those registered ones of the sons of Gershon, by their clans and by their father's house, from 30 years old and above, even to 50 years old, all who entered the service for work in the tent of appointment. The registered ones by their clans, by their father's house, were 2,630. These were the registered ones of the clans of the sons of Gershon, of all who serve in the tent of appointment, whom Moshe and Aaron registered according to the mouth of Yahweh. And those of the clans of the sons of Merari, who were registered by their clans, by their father's house, from 30 years old and above, even to 50 years old, all who entered the service for work in the tent of appointment. The registered ones by their clans were 3,200 and above, even to these were the registered ones of the all who entered the service for work in the tent of appointment. Moshe and Aaron registered ones by their clans Yahweh by the hand of Moshe. Even to these were the registered ones all who entered the service Moshe and Aaron and Moshe and Aaron registered ones by their clans and by their hand of Moshe. Even to these were the registered ones all who entered the service Moshe and Aaron all who came Moshe and Aaron registered ones by their clans and by of appointment. The registered ones were 8,580. According to the mouth of Yahweh, they were registered by the hand of Moshe, each according to his service and according to his burden. Thus were they registered by him, as Yahweh commanded Moshe. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Command the children of Israel to send out of the camp every leper, and everyone who has a discharge, and whoever becomes defiled for a being. Send out both male and female, send them both outside the camp, so that they do not defile the camps in the midst of which I dwell. And the children of Israel did so. He sent them outside the camp, as Yahweh had spoken to Moshe, so the children of Israel did. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, when a man or woman commits any sin that men commit in trespass against Yahweh, and that being is guilty, then they shall confess their sin which they have done, and he shall restore his guilt in its principal, plus 1/5 of it, and give it to whom he has been guilty. But if the man has no relative to restore the guilt to, the guilt which is restored goes to Yahweh, or the priest, in addition to the ram of the atonement, with which atonement is made for him. And every contribution of all the set-apart gifts of the children of Israel, which they bring to the priest, becomes his. And every man's set-apart gifts becomes his. Whatever any man gives, the priest becomes his. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, When any man's wife turns aside and has committed a trespass against him, and a man has intercourse with her, and it is hidden from the eyes of her husband, and it is concealed that she has defiled herself, and there was no witness against her, nor was she caught, and a spirit of jealousy comes upon him, and he becomes jealous of his wife, who has defiled herself, or a spirit of jealousy comes upon him, and he becomes jealous of his wife, although she has not defiled herself, then the man shall bring his wife to the priest, and he shall bring the offering for her, 1/10 of an ephah of barley flour. He is not to pour oil on it or put frankincense on it, because it is a grain offering of jealousy, an offering for remembering, for bringing crookedness to remembrance. And the priest shall bring her near, and shall make her stand before Yahweh. The priest shall set apart water in an earthen vessel, and take some of the dust that is on the floor of the dwelling place, and put it into the water. The priest shall make the woman stand before Yahweh, and shall uncover the woman's head, put the offering for remembering in her hands, which is the grain offering of jealousy, while the priest holds on in his hand the bitter water that brings a curse. And the priest shall make her swear and say to the woman, If no man has lain with you, and if you have not turned aside to uncleanness under your husband's authority, be free from this bitter water that brings a curse. But if you have turned aside under your husband's authority, and if you have defiled yourself, and some man other than your husband has lain with you, then the priest shall make the woman swear with the oath of the curse, and he shall say to the woman, Yahweh make you a curse and an oath among you, your people, when Yahweh makes your thigh waste away and your belly swell. And this water that causes the curse shall go into your inward parts, and make your belly swell and your thigh waste away. And the woman shall say, Amen, Amen. And the priest shall write these curses in a book, and shall wipe them off into the bitter water. And shall make the woman drink the bitter water that brings the curse, and the water that brings the curse shall enter her to become bitter. And the priest shall take the grain offering of jealousy from the woman's hand, and shall wave the offering before Yahweh, and bring it to the slaughter place. And the priest shall take a hand filled with the offering as its remembrance offering, and burn it on the slaughter place, and afterward make the woman drink the water. And when he had made her drink the water, then it shall be, if she has defiled herself and has committed a trespass against her husband, that the water that brings the curse shall enter her and become bitter, and her belly shall swell, and her thighs shall waste away, and the woman shall become a curse among her people. But if the woman has not defiled herself and is clean, then she shall be clear and shall conceive children. This is the Torah of jealousy, when a wife turns aside under her husband's authority and defiles herself, or when a spirit of jealousy comes upon a man, and he becomes jealous of his wife. Then he shall make the woman stand before Yahweh, and the priest shall do to her all this Torah. And the man shall be clear from crookedness, but the woman bear her crookedness. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, When a man or woman does separate by making a vow of a Nazirite to be separate to Yahweh, he separates himself from wine and strong drink. He drinks neither vinegar of wine nor vinegar of strong drink. Neither does he drink any grape juice nor eat grapes or raisins. All the days of his separation he does not eat whatever is made of the grapevine, from seed to skin. All the days of the vow of his separation a razor does not come upon his head. Until the days are completed for which he does separate himself to Yahweh, he is set apart. He shall let the locks of the hair of his head grow long. All the days of his separation to Yahweh he does not go near a dead body. He does not make himself unclean for his father or for his mother, or his brother or his sister when they die, because his separation to Elohim is on his head. All the days of his separation he is set apart to Yahweh. And when anyone dies beside him in an instant, suddenly, he has defiled the head of his separation, and he shall shave his head on the day of his cleansing. On the 7th day he shaves it. And on the 8th day he brings 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons to the priest, to the door of the tent of appointment. And the priest shall prepare one as a sin offering and the other as an ascending offering, and shall make atonement for him, because he sinned by reason of the dead body. He shall set apart his head on that day. He shall separate to Yahweh the days of his separation, and shall bring a male lamb a year old as a guilt offering. But the former days are not counted, because his separation was defiled. This is the Torah of the Nazirite. When the days of his separation are completed, he is brought to the door of the tent of appointment, and he shall bring his offering to Yahweh, 1 male lamb a year old, a perfect one, as an ascending offering, and 1 ewe lamb a year old, a perfect one, as a sin offering, 1 ram a perfect one, as a peace offering, a basket of unleavened bread, cakes of fine flour mixed with oil, and unleavened thin cakes anointed with oil, their grain offering with their drink offerings. And the priest shall bring them before Yahweh and prepare his sin offering and his ascending offering. He shall prepare the ram as a slaughtering of peace offerings to Yahweh, together with a basket of unleavened bread. The priest shall prepare its grain offering and its drink offering. And the Nazirite shall shave the head of his separation at the door of the tent of appointment, shall take the hair from his head of his separation, shall put it on the fire which is under the slaughtering of the peace offerings. The priest shall take the boiled shoulder of the ram and 1 unleavened cake from the basket, and 1 unleavened thin cake, and put them upon the hands of the Nazirite after he has shaved his hair of separation. Then the priest shall wave them a wave offering before Yahweh. It is set apart for the priest, besides the breast of the wave offering, and besides the thigh of the contribution. And afterwards the Nazirite shall drink wine. This is the Torah of the Nazirite who vows to Yahweh the offering for his separation, and besides that, whatever else his hand is able to provide, according to the vow which he takes. So he shall do according to the Torah of his separation. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, This is how you bless the children of Israel. Say to them, Yahweh bless you and guard you. Yahweh make his face shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahweh lift up his face upon you and give you peace. Thus they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I myself shall bless them.
All right. Chapter 7. It came to be when Moshe finished setting up the dwelling place that he anointed it and set it apart and all its furnishings, as well as the slaughter place and all its utensils. Thus he anointed them and set them apart. And the leaders of Israel, heads of their fathers' houses, who were the leaders of the tribes and over the ones registered, drew near, and they brought their offerings before Yahweh. 6 covered wagons and 12 cattle, a wagon for every two of the leaders, and for each one a bull. And they brought them near before the dwelling place. And Jehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, accept these from them, and they shall be used in doing the service of the tent of appointment, and you shall give them to the Levites, each one according to his service. And Moshe took the wagons and the cattle and gave them to the Levites. He gave 2 wagons and 4 cattle to the sons of Gershon according to their service. And he gave 4 wagons and 8 cattle to the sons of Merari according to their service under the hand of Ithamar, sons of Aaron the priest. But to the sons of the Kohath he gave none, because theirs was the service of the set-apart objects, which they bore on their shoulders. And the leaders brought the dedication offering to the slaughter place in the day it was anointed. So the leaders brought their offerings before the slaughter place. And Jehovah said to Moshe, let them bring their offerings 1 liter each day for the dedication of the slaughter place. And the one who brought his offering on the first day was Nahashon, son of Amminadab, from the tribe of Yehudah. And his offering was 1 silver dish, the weight of which was 130 shekels, 1 silver bowl of 70 shekels, according to the shekel of the set-apart place, both of them filled with fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering, 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram, 1 male, one male lamb a year old, as an ascending offering, 1 male goat as a sin offering, and as a slaughtering of peace offering, 2 cattle, 5 rams, 5 male goats, 5 male lambs a year old. This was the offering of Nahashon, son of Amminadab. On the second day, Nathaniel, son of Tishar, leader of Issachar, he brought his offering, 1 silver dish, the weight of which was 130 shekels, 1 silver bowl of 70 shekels, according to the shekel of the set-apart place, both of them filled with fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering, 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram, 1 male lamb a year old as an ascending offering, 1 male goat as a sin offering, and as a slaughtering of peace offerings, 2 cattle, 5 rams, 5 male goats, 5 male lambs a year old. This was the offering of Nathaniel, son of Tizar. On the third day, Eliab, son of Helon, leader of the children of Zebulun, his offering was 1 silver dish, the weight of which was 130 shekels, 1 silver bowl of 70 shekels, according to the shekel of the set-apart place, both of them filled with fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering, 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram, 1 male lamb a year old, as an ascending offering, 1 male goat as a sin offering, and as a slaughtering of peace offerings, 2 cattle, 5 rams, 5 male goats, 5 male lambs a year old. This was the offering of Eliab, son of Helon. On the fourth day, Eliester, son of Shedeur, leader of the children of Reuben, his offering was 1 silver dish, the weight of which was 130 shekels, 1 silver bowl of 70 shekels, according to the shekel of the set-apart place, both of them filled with fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering, 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram, 1 male lamb a year old, as an ascending offering, 1 male goat as a sin offering, and as a slaughtering of peace offerings, 2 cattle, 5 rams, 5 male goats, 5 male lambs, a year old. This was the offering of Elister, son of Shadir. On the 5th day, Shalumiel, son of Shaddai, leader of the children of Simeon, his offering was 1 silver dish, the weight of which was 130 shekels, 1 silver bowl of 70 shekels, according to the shekel of the set apart place, both of them filled with fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering. 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram, 1 male lamb a year old, as an ascending offering, 1 male goat as a sin offering, and as a slaughtering of peace offering, 2 cattle, 5 rams, 5 male goats, 5 male lambs a year old. This was the offering of the Shalom, son of Shaddai. On the 6th day, Eliasaph, son of Duel, leader of the children of Gad, his offering was 1 silver dish, the weight of which was 130 shekels, 1 silver bowl of 70 shekels, according to the shekel of the set apart place, both of them filled with fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering. 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels, filled with incense. 1 young bull, 1 ram, 1 male lamb a year old, as an ascending offering. 1 male goat as a sin offering, and as a slaughtering of peace offerings, 2 cattle, 5 rams, 5 male goats, 5 male lambs a year old. This was the offering of Eliasaph, son of Duel. On the 7th day, Elisham, son of Amminadab, leader of the children of Ephraim, his offering was 1 silver dish, the weight of which was 130 shekels, 1 silver bowl of 70 shekels, according to the shekel of the set apart place, both of them filled with fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering. 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels, filled with incense. 1 young bull, 1 ram, 1 male lamb a year old, as an ascending offering, 1 male goat as a sin offering, and as a slaughtering of peace offerings, 2 cattle, 5 rams, 5 male goats, 5 male lambs a year old. This was the offering of Elisham, son of Amminadab. On the 8th day, Gamaliel, son of Pedestar, leader of the children of Manasseh, his offering was 1 silver dish, the weight of which was 30 shekels, 1 silver bowl of 70 shekels, according to the shekel of set apart place, both of them filled with fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering. 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels, filled with incense. 1 young bull, 1 ram, 1 male lamb a year old, as an ascending offering. 1 male goat as a sin offering, and as a slaughtering of peace offerings. 2 cattle, 5 rams, 5 male goats, 5 male lambs a year old. This was the offering of Gamaliel, son of Pedestar. On the 9th day, Abidan, son of Gidoni, leader of the children of Benjamin, his offering was 1 silver dish, the weight of which was 130 shekels. 1 silver bowl of 70 shekels, according to the shekel of the set apart place, both of them filled with fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering. 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels, filled with incense. 1 bull, 1 ram, 1 male lamb a year old, as an ascending offering. 1 male goat as a sin offering, and as a slaughtering of peace offerings. 2 cattle, 5 rams, 5 male goats, 5 male lambs a year old. This was the offering of Abidan, son of Gonani. On the 10th day, Eleazar, son of Ammishaddai, leader of the children of Dan, his offering was 1 silver dish, the weight of which was 130 shekels, 1 silver bowl of 70 shekels, according to the shekel of the set apart place, both of them filled with fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering. 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense. 1 young bull, 1 ram, 1 male lamb, a year old, as an ascending offering. 1 male goat as a sin offering, and as a slaughtering of peace offering. 2 cattle, 5 rams, 5 male goats, 5 male lambs, a year old. This was the offering of Eleazar, son of Ammishaddai. On the 11th day, Pagiel, son of Okron, leader of the children of Asher, his offering was 1 silver dish, the weight of which was 130 shekels, 1 silver bowl of 70 shekels, according to the shekel of the set apart place, both of them filled with fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering. 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels, filled with incense. One young bull, 1 ram, 1 male lamb, a year old, as an ascending offering. 1 male goat as a sin offering, and as a slaughtering of peace offering. 2 cattle, 5 rams, 5 male goats, 5 male lambs, a year old. This was the offering of Pagiel, son of Okron. On the 12th day, Ahiram, son of Enon, leader of the children of Naphtali, his offering was 1 silver dish, the weight of which was 130 shekels. 1 silver bowl of 70 shekels, according to the shekel of set apart place, both of them filled with fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering. 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels, filled with incense. 1 young bull, 1 ram, 1 male lamb, a year old, as an ascending offering. 1 male goat as a sin offering, and as a slaughtering of peace offerings. 2 cattle, 5 rams, 5 male goats, 5 male lambs, a year old. This was the offering of Ahiram, son of Enon. This was the dedication of the slaughter place from the leaders of Israel. When it was anointed, 12 silver dishes, 12 silver bowls, 12 gold ladles. Each silver dish was 130 shekels, and each bowl 70 shekels. All of the silver of the vessels was 2,400 shekels, according to the shekel of the set apart place. The 12 gold ladles filled with incense was 10 shekels, each according to the shekel of the set apart place. All the gold of the ladles was 120 shekels. All the cattle for the ascending offering were 12 young bulls, the rams 12, the male lambs a year old 12, with their grain offering, and male goats as a sin offering 12. And all the cattle for the slaughtering of peace offerings were 24 bulls, the rams 60, the male goats 60, the lambs a year old 60. This was the dedication of the slaughter place after it was anointed. And when Moses went into the tent of appointment to speak with him, he heard the voice of one speaking to him from above the lid of the atonement that was on the ark of the witness, from between the 2 cherubim. Thus he spoke to him. Whew. You want me to repeat that? You want me to repeat that?
Yeah. Phonics is hard without those because they're not phonetically put together. once you go like high with the A, then you got to go low with. It's like all.
Okay, what are we going to tackle first?
Start with.
So the actual title of the Torah portion is Naso, means take up or elevate. Yeah, take up the census. You have something, Redeem? Nope. I was just filling in.
Bringing it
dead
in.
space.
Yeah, waiting for me. Thank you. So I've got something on the Numbers chapter 5, verse 6 and 7. Or I can actually, let's say from the verse 5. It says, Then Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, when a man or woman commits any of the sins of mankind, acting unfaithfully against Jehovah, and that person is guilty, then he shall confess his sins which he has committed, and he shall make restitution in full for his wrong, and add to it 1/5 of it, and give it to him who he has wronged. So I thought that there's a good connection to what Yeshua is teaching in Matthew chapter. Let me see. Oh, it's the same chapter, Matthew chapter 5, and verses 23 and 24. And it says, Therefore, if you are presenting your offering at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your offering there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother, and then come and present your offering. So, I thought we know that Yeshua always connects everything back to the usually the Torah, the first 5 books, and so I think that this is like a good connection, and it's like the principle of if there's, you may come before God and you want to receive blessings, and you want to get his forgiveness, but if he reminds you, there's something between you and another person, go and go take care of it, and then come back to me, and so I think that that's a really good principle, and yeah, I had actually just right here at the beginning, I was like in joking mode, so I was kind of poking at Joe, and I was like, oh man, he probably wasn't in the right mode for joking. So later on, I was like, the Spirit reminded me, go and make it right by your brother. Go talk to him, go say sorry or something, And so
Give him
okay,
a fifth.
I'll be obedient, and the
Vote or something.
and his the scriptures and the Torah portion, and it's all connect with a life example right there, just for you
Yep.
guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, Redeem. Mike, no dead space. That's your husband's rules.
I had a question on chapter 4. So it was talking about, if I understand this right, if the woman messed up, okay, and she confessed and she drinks the bit of water.
That's later.
Oh, that's later.
Yeah, but
Some
go,
fine.
you go
Yeah,
ahead.
go
Okay, but anyways, drinks the water, then her body would swell up, and then I guess she would,
If she actually did the sin, yeah.
if she
Yeah.
did the sin, and then she would well, it doesn't say, but I would assume she would croak and die. But if No, I mean,
she's gonna get sick.
she'd get sick. I
and
mean,
whatever else.
but
leads
because
to
it
that.
doesn't say what will happen.
She'd be a curse. That's what all it says.
Yeah.
Probably, you're probably right.
And if she didn't, okay, either way, there. Let me understand this. Either way, she would be drinking the water, and if she didn't sin, then nothing would happen
Right.
to her body. She wouldn't be cursed. But if
But
she
she'd
did,
actually, she'd be able to have babies. That's what it says. She would have children.
okay, that's what I wanted to understand. I was
Right.
like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And then that cup kind of ties into with Yeshua when he's in the Garden of Yosemite, and he asked the Father to take this cup from him, and he takes that cup.
He was
drinks it.
accursed for us.
But his legs didn't swell and his belly didn't
Right.
swell.
Remind me of a you ever catch how up and then they get flat like
I know. Probably ain't pretty. Right, Jonathan? Jonathan's picturing it now. Not pretty.
This reminds me of the jealousy of our Father. Um, that what if she wasn't? She was faithful to her husband. It's like a testimony to how she feels towards him.
Mhm.
It's like proof. So we kind of need to prove to him
Yeah.
how much we love him.
Yeah.
Something I thought was interesting, for lack of a better word. At the very end of chapter 5, after it goes through all the things that the woman has to go through, and she's either guilty or not, and if she is, she's cursed, and if she is not guilty, she's has no consequence. She's still able to have children. But then at the very end, verse 29 through 31, this is the Torah of jealousy when a wife turns aside under her husband's authority and defiles herself, or when a spirit of jealousy comes upon a man and he becomes jealous of his wife. Then he shall make the woman stand before Yahweh, and the priest shall do to her all this Torah. And then what I think is a interesting key verse is verse 31, where it says, and the man shall be clear from crookedness, but the woman bear her crookedness. So I'm not really sure what that's trying to say, but I just kind of wonder about, we've all heard of men who are just naturally jealous, and they will think something's going on if their wife even says hello to another man or, something like that. So what if the man is that type and he accuses his wife of something she didn't do and she passes this test and he walks away scot-free? I don't know. I just kind of wonder about that.
Yeah, I'm kind of tossing that back and forth too, but you got to figure this is probably done publicly to some degree. And he's only going to be able to do it once. He takes her back to the priest is going to be like, come on, man. Eh, Yeah. And so he would almost embarrass himself to have to do it a second time. Just a thought. That's what I was thinking about it too. It's like he's not held responsible, but it would challenge his reputation at some point, his credibility. Yeah. And it does talk about a spirit of jealousy too, so maybe it's the actual spirit that we're talking about, and this process maybe delivers them from that spirit.
The other thing I would think also what this would do by doing this test is it would keep the man from falsely accusing somebody else also,
Yeah.
or going to that person and harming somebody else falsely. So at least for this to be procedure to be in place, it's either you are or you aren't, so you know for sure. But because it's in the hands of the priest, and you know that the proceeding from there will be dealt with in a godly way. Versus if you just went out there and you just thought my wife's cheating on me with that guy, and it really wasn't a thing or nothing going on, but you went and murdered that guy. Now blood's on your hands. I mean, it's just a lot. It becomes a really big mess. So at least through the process of taking it to the priest, it's done as the most godly way that you can do to see if this is actually, something that's going on or not. So, my 2 shekels.
So I think got a little close. So I think there's like 2 sides to it. Like for the female, I guess, and the male, but really from the female perspective, it's almost like when they're, because I always look at the rules like from 2 different perspectives, but it's almost like because there's such a big issue that comes up, you got to go before the priest, you got to do all these things, and you might end up swelling up. It forces you to live the right way and almost tell the truth up front, because kind of what's going to happen in the future, which most rules and laws are to keep you from ever getting to that point. And saying if you just so happen to make it this far down the road, then these are the consequences kind of deal. So it's almost like preventative in a way, but also for the man, even though these are still humans, still sinners, and these are God set apart people amongst the whole world, and they should and probably would be living totally separate in their communities, full accountability, Torah all the time. So these aren't, we view it as like in today's perspective of, divorce court and prenups and all that stuff. And that was completely opposite back then, so if it seems as though the way it's written, at least kind of like what Ted was saying, that they wouldn't just be willy-nilly throwing out accusations. It was a really big deal. It happened very rarely, and it would have had to been something that was totally counter to their whole culture and their whole way of living. So I think when you add those 2 together, you can see why it's expressly written out in such details. Like, this isn't going to happen, but if it does and when it does, we're going to handle it this way.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it that way too, as like something to counteract the things that could happen, and of course, Father is trying to teach them how to live the way He wants them to live, especially with Him, because I don't know if it's emphasized in yours, but it talks about authorities. The authority is emphasized when I talk about the husband. Well, he's trying to reference that back. He's going to eventually reference that back to him. He's the authority, And then, like what Joe was saying before, it got to the point where they're getting stoned for adultery or, whatever, murder for killing somebody or whatever. He's using this before it gets to that point, which is pretty merciful. And I mean, how many times did He gives us chances and all that stuff, and He's merciful and all that. So I think these are the building blocks to teaching them and that community on how to be with each other in Him. We looking at it as a kind of, wow, that's kind of harsh, but it's like just another step to get close to Him. How do you, don't do this stuff because it's not good.
Do you see anything recorded that it ever happened, that any woman had to go before him? Just like they said when a child or, curses his parents, he's stoned to death. It makes you wonder, because it doesn't really record that ever happened. But because
Yeah.
the
Punishment
rules
was
were
so,
so severe,
Yeah.
they were too afraid to do anything.
Yeah, I think the only time it's mentioned about a boy getting stoned is when he was blaspheming the Lord's name with his parent, like something like that, and the parents had to bring him before it.
That was in Leviticus.
But not a rebellious, just a typical, like you said, rebellious kid. I read that one. I was like, is that the one? I heard that too. I was like, I never saw anything about a kid being stoned, but I think one was, but it was because he was blaspheming. Okay, yeah.
So, chapter 6, from well, pretty much the whole thing, 1 through 21. Um, my notes in the Bible here says, the Nazarite vow. Oh, that's good. Yeah, thank you. The Nazarite vow was a special type of voluntary devotion. A person could take a special vow of separation for a limited period of time, during which they were not to eat or drink anything that came from the grapevine, and were not to cut their hair or beard. The grapevine was a source of physical pleasure and, oh, I don't know how to say this word, abstin, well, no, abstention. Okay, that was my best shot. From it represented a life given over to God, allowing the hair to grow signified, oh my gosh, again, abstention
Right.
from,
Abstinence, isn't it?
well, it's
Abstinence
spelled
from.
Abstention. Abstention? Okay, okay. All right, abstention from human adornment. Gosh, I'm glad I didn't have to read, can't even read a regular word. During the period for which the vow was taken, the Nazarite was to be careful to avoid becoming ceremonially unclean for any reason. If someone should die suddenly in the presence of one who had taken a Nazarite vow, it would be necessary to make certain prescribed offerings, shave one's head, start the period of separation all over again. A special ceremony ending the period of Nazarite separation is described. This threefold divinely inspired blessing from 24 through 26, 624 through 26. This threefold divinely inspired blessing was pronounced by the priest with uplifted hands. It moves from a generational blessing to an invocation of God's favor and presence, and finally to a climatic mention of the peace that comes only with God's gracious presence. The pronouncement of this blessing placed God's covenant name Yahweh on the people. And on 625, well, we sing that, of course. Make his face shine upon you. Here's a vivid figure for God looking favorably upon his worshipers. The closer one's access to the face of God, the greater the blessing.
So here are a couple of additional comments regarding that, the priestly blessing there. So you talked about make his face shine on you. In verse 26, where it says, may Adonai lift up his face toward you. To lift a face toward someone meant to see him and give him your attention. So the prayer is that God would take action on behalf of the petitioner. And then in verse 27, where it says, in this way you are to put my name on the people of Israel. To put my name on is an idiom meaning to share the reputation of. So if the nation observes the Torah, then they will accurately convey God's message to those around them.
What was like? Does anybody know like what the purpose of the Nazarite vow was? That was just like to just do something special, Yahweh, or
About getting closer to him.
Okay.
You have levels,
Mm.
the Kohanim and next and so on, and it's all about a heart condition and how close you want to get to him.
Okay. Kind of like fasting, or just doing it with
Probably
without
humility
grapes.
ties in with that too. Of shaving the head and all these different types of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just gonna add that it's just kind of to bring you closer to God and to be more connected with His Spirit, and then the Spirit can actually like act in your life. It like it almost can be more profound. It can go to the next level, higher level, and so we're gonna be reading later about the story with what's his name, Samson. So you can see that the Spirit was doing all kinds of things, almost like a miraculous things through him. And then in the Brit Hadashah in the New Testament, you have the story with Paul. I believe that Paul also took a Nazarite vow,
Yeah.
and so you can see that God was doing all kinds of amazing kingdom thing through him. So it's like kind of like you dedicate yourself more to God, and it's always like there is the principle in the scriptures that if you want to draw closer to God, there's always you're gonna abstain. There's some price for it. There's some sacrifice. So it's gonna be either food or drink or other areas of your life that's gonna bring you closer to Him when you give it up, when you sacrifice it. You know.
I guess like wine and grapes and stuff would be like a pleasure thing that you're abstaining from. Why raisins? I know. Little red boxes with raisins.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Got something there, Ted?
I don't know. I was just thinking of so along with this portion, the Haftorah talks about how Samson came to be and how he was declared to be a Nazarite from the womb. And I think we have a couple of, and then
In the
The
book
Brit-
of Acts, yeah.
the book of Acts, where Paul helped some who had made that vow complete it, because there was a cost involved.
Mm-hmm.
And then and we have a couple of other instances in Scripture where, similar to Samson, where a person was dedicated from the womb. Think of Samuel and John the Immerser, John the Baptist. They
Yeah.
were both dedicated from the womb. In the case of John, he was not to drink,
Don't drink.
have anything to do with fruit of the vine, anything related to that. So, just more than just one example of that in Scripture, but there are
Yeah.
only a few. Which I don't know if that's a message to us that it's not a common thing, and to declare it is a serious thing.
Yeah.
Through my studies lately, I've been learning that all these things play in a part of how far, like you said, I think it was you, Louise, saying how far you want to take it with me to the Father and to Messiah. Well, because we know Messiah now. But even back then, it was to the Father. How close do you want to get with me? I think that's what all this is about with the Torah, tabernacle, all that. Right. And of course, he's teaching them all this stuff because they don't know. I mean, we're reading it, but they didn't have a book to read to know all this stuff. So then you go forward. What Ted's saying, It's teaching you actually if you are representing him in whatever ministry, because we all have a calling once we get saved and all that. We have a calling. So, how do you grow in that calling? How do you be beneficial to people around you? Do His glory is to be humble all the time, because if we're not careful, pride sets in, man or woman. With pride is rebellion. And then we go against what the Father is telling us, and we start doing what we want to do out of our own will, all of our what we feel, what we like, what we think, instead of doing what He wills it for us to do, which is Yahweh's will, Yahweh's feelings, Yahweh's thoughts. So I think by us being in humility, walking that, keeping us in that humility, like with some of the things, stay away from. Because those things can cause you to be in a state of like impaired thinking, strong drink and all that, where you're thinking about yourself, or whatever. And then that kind of thing. And then, of course, with the things that it just seems like they're good, like raisins or something like that. Well, you're saying that, or like when we do fasting, saying that I am, it's not that I don't have, I'm not like fasting because I'm starving to death because I don't have any food. But I have all this food around me, but I'm choosing not to touch it and eat it to get myself closer to the Father. And that's what He wants us to be at. Not because we're trying to be on a diet, losing weight or anything, just, we're abstaining from things that are carnal, fleshly, closer to Him spiritually, to grow spiritually. So that's what I take from this stuff. Even though, because sometimes you have to look at this stuff as not like glass half empty, like, ugh, this is some horrible stuff, but the fullness of it, like, of positive stuff. Yeah.
The fasting is another good example of it, that you just abstaining and in order to draw closer to Him. And that's my experience and my testimony. Like anytime when I go up to the prayer mountain and I try to be closer to God and hear from Him or things like that. Like if I would, if I basically do some fasting, I prepare myself, I pray a lot and things like that, then I have a really close experience with Him there. But if I just go don't do anything and just eating and drinking, so it's fine, like you have a good time, but then I usually don't experience like a close encounter, or it's just another vacation type of thing.
Well, you know what I think that's about too? I think that the Father honors that. So He gets the Holy Spirit working in you, turning up that fire in you, so you have a clearer thinking of Him spiritually. So you're going to be more in your spiritual mindset than the flesh. The flesh and carnal is going to be pushed over, and then He gets to fill you up more spiritually, Well, I mean, He's real too. Yeah, I mean, He's real also, but, we're here walking around with our fleshly bodies. We have to die to that. In order to do that, we have to turn ourselves over to Him, give Him the authority over our mind, body, and soul. He's already living in the Spirit, but Spirit's got to, we got to make the choices against those other things so the Spirit can do its job, let's put it that way. We don't have our perfect bodies yet.
I watched a little bit of it. This is a little plug for you, Bill Cloud. It is. But it was playing in our house, not about this, but talking about fasting and abstaining things. And he was bringing, if any of y'all watched it or heard it, this is the only snippet that I heard. He was talking about Sukkot, and he says some people view it as like, oh, it's a a great camping trip, a great time for vacation, you know. And he says, yes, you're supposed to enjoy yourself, but it's a time to get closer to him. So, and he was mentioning about some people may take it too far, and you know, he was mentioning how he's heard things, unfortunately, where some people will even smoke dope, or you know, as far as the strong drink going, it's like just one big party fest instead of getting closer to him. Is the whole behavior. That's the word. That's the word I was looking for. It's the behavior, and where that's going. So listening to everyone talking, I was like, oh, that sort of ties in with a little bit of what I heard before I came. And I thought that's really good.
Well, yeah, because our behavior, we're supposed to be set apart.
Right.
Sometimes I think
Right.
we take it lightly. Set apart is just set. Oh, we're just set apart. Set apart is very special
Yeah.
thing, because
Most
if we're
definitely.
chosen by Him, that is something to be taken seriously, to be set apart, and that helps us stay on track with His character. So, like you said, if we're at Sukkot and we got like strangers around us, you know, like people that aren't from our group, they see us. What are they seeing? You know, are they seeing Him or some kind of group that is having, you know, kind of appearing like the world?
Oh, yeah.
So,
That's
you know,
like, you know, recently for those that went down to Liberty Square, and when we were all there, you know, praying for our state and our nation, but specifically for our state. And I like to observe people, and I was watching like other people that wasn't with us. And some, you know, some just looked and kept walking, but there were others, they were like intrigued. They stopped and sat down and stayed and listened and watched. And I thought, see,
yeah,
as
that,
Joe
and that was
says, they're
showing
always
good
watching.
character. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
the
think
Father.
all the feasts are to bring about remembrance of what He's done and who He is, and then to show a degree of reverence towards Him too.
That was a good thing at the square.
Yeah.
Showed him. I think he was very pleased.
I want to give a shout out to Bill Cloud this morning also, because I listened to I got to listen to the majority of his message, which was a really great. Highly recommend you go back and listen to the message. It is very current for today, what we're going through as a body. You know, one of the things he brought up, you know, he brought Philippians 4:13. Of course, Paul is speaking about, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. This has been one of those probably overly used, out of context things that I've even got a weightlifting shirt that has a 45-pound plate on it, and it has Philippians 4:13 within the plate. You know, I can lift all things through. I was kidding. And so, what was interesting though is when you go back, and Bill did a really good job of reading Philippians 4:13 and then tying it right back in at the very end of his message. But one of the things was he talked about, and we've all experienced this in our Torah readings, where God's taking the senses. He's got who begot who so-and-so begot so-and-so, and you're going, okay, we kind of glazed. And to be honest, we've all done it. We've all glazed over that part. Like, oh, God, why did you tell us who begot who, and why we need to know about every little detail of everything that's going on? And I agree with him that everything that's been given to us, especially the Torah that was given to Moshe, there is a purpose for everything that's written on every page, period. And it's just through our minds that we get to certain Torah portions, we go, this is a really good Torah portion, because we'll jump into it. And you know, especially when we're talking about Abraham and we're getting to Joseph, and there's so many things that we're pulling from everything. And then we get to those chapters where it's nothing but who begot who and everything else. But the one thing that's interesting is when you go back to chapter 7, when they're bringing all their stuff to Moshe, and it says, picking up in 3, it says they brought their offerings before the Lord, 6 wagons and 12 oxen, a wagon for every 2 of the chiefs, and for each one an ox. They brought them before the tabernacle. Then the Lord spoke to Moshe, accept these from them, that they may be used in the service of the tent of meeting, and give them to the Levites, to each man according to his service. That made me think about what we live in today, and what is our service today. Because, of course, we're not Levitical priest. And not every priest was a high priest. Not every priest went before the Holy of Holies. There were specific job duties, I'll say that loosely, job duties or services that they were called to do, and whether they wanted to or not. And so in today's world, maybe start thinking about how we'll desire to be, I want to be that, or I want to be this, or man, and we're not looking at the potential that God's put in our own life, and God's saying, but that's not who I created you to be. I need you, like what we talk about, Chris, we always get around, stay in your own lane, bro. You got to finish up with bro. You just got to finish. Hey, bro, stay in your own lane. But when we go back to what the way he tied in Philippians 4:13 was, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, yes. And if you read before that, Paul is saying, I've had plenty and I've had little. And he just goes through this whole thing. And so, but I think the main thing that he pulled from that was Paul was saying, but in the many and in the little I was content. And I think that's where we're missing that point as that famous Christian sticker, I can do all things. But Bill said this, and I was like, man, that's great. I'm going to steal it from you. He says, but can you do all things and be content? Can I be content with a little? Can I, as much as I can be content with a lot? And so that, to me, just hearing that today really took this particular portion for me and gave me a whole nother paradigm or another way of looking at it. Instead of glossing over, well, this is what they did, and each one according to what he did, and as you read through 7, it tells you what their services were. But God was rewarding them and giving them unto the service they were doing. Now, if we're not doing the service that God has given us to do, is there any reward?
No.
No.
There's
So-
actually curses.
Exactly. So these men, they brought this to them. He says, okay, now we're going to give them to the Levites and according to their service. So if you're trying to be like that person, you're trying to do this outside of the will of what God has for your life, you're going to struggle the whole time. There won't be any blessings in that. There will only be, like Angela said, curses. So again, for me, this is I'm glad I got a chance to listen to that message today. I thought it was fantastic. But the thing that really stuck with me was, of us, when we're going through the good times and we're going through the bad times, can we be content of where we are and what God's doing in our life? So, Louise?
I think you're at that. I listened to Bill too, and it was really good. And it will tie in. I think this comes before the episode with Cora. So this is like kind of forewarning him, forewarning the people. Be content where you are. This is what I've called you to do. Don't try to take over somebody else's job. That's what they're called to do, etc. And so they weren't around, or they didn't hear, or they didn't get it.
Yeah.
It happened.
Well, I think with Cora and them, it's just, and there was more people than just Cora that were acting. It's just that Cora acted out on it. Yeah, was the leader and acted out on it, and was Moshe's cousin, right?
Yeah.
Am I correct in that? Yeah. And so Cora was not content with Moshe being the leader, and see where they were the teachable moment. Unfortunately for him and the people with him was their life was a teachable moment. Was that when God had appointed Moshe, whether you liked it or not, Abba had appointed Moshe as my mouthpiece. So when you speak against him, you speak against Moshe. You speak against the Father. And so, yeah, it ties in with the jealousy also. That's right. And Bill did a great job in time. I'm not going to tell you his whole sermon. I want you to go back and listen to it. But it was really good today. It really ties into where we are today as a body and how we need to mature and grow as a body. And when he started talking about Sukkot, man, I was like, well, if I was there, you would have heard me over the crowd yelling amen. Because the thing about the feast days isn't just to get together and have a party. It's to get together and meet with Abba. Because Abba says, I'll be there. But if you're blasted out of your mind, I know for Sukkot, I've heard stories. I'm not going to name any groups out there. There's a big group out way back, and it's like my daughter went there, and she said, Dad says there was more alcohol being passed around than she's ever seen. And people getting high and everything else, and they were using it as an excuse. Well, God said to party. Well, God's not talking. He's not talking about that type of party. First of all, It's the season of our joy. Exactly right. And I like what Bill said. Bill said to his congregation, he's like, hey, I don't care if the state we're in says it's legal to do it. He says, as far as this group's concerned, it's illegal. And they're not going to tolerate it, which I thought was a great thing. Because you're losing the reason why we're doing this. We're not doing Sukkot to go out there and get high. You go out there, one, as family and fellowship. And the main part of that is guess what the first and last day of Sukkot is? It's a holy day. If it was just about camping and partying, why would God throw 2 holy days in there? Because he wants you to remember when you get there while you're there, and when you're leaving, he wants you to remember again why you were here and the experience of what you had while you were there. So, go ahead, guys. Whoever's, yep, yeah. No golden calf, man. It just magically came out the fire. I don't know what happened.
Right.
So speaking of staying in the lanes, so I was trying to find something in that last super duper long section about them bringing the exact same thing 12 different times, and started thinking, and I was looking at, there was a lot of silver and a lot of gold, and so my mind started running through money and numbers, 'cause that's what I do, and 130 shekels is about 1 kilo of silver. So in like today's money, it's about $900. So that's for the one bowl, and then the other one was about half a kilo or 1,000 grams, and then the gold was about 3 ounces, which in today's money is $6,000, around about. So I was like, well, one, that's a lot of money in today's standards, and we go back that far. We know how money goes backwards with inflation. I mean, we're talking astronomical amounts of money in today's value. But also I thought it was interesting, like we look at the original, like the 49ers, they were able just to find gold nuggets like in the water or just on the ground, just laying there. You can't do that anymore. It's all been
Taken.
pretty much taken. Now you have to dig 400 tons of dirt and you get 3 ounces out of it. So I kind of wondered back then, did God like have like his separate land where it was just available? Because they had to burn. I mean, that's a lot of silver and gold that you had to find chunks of it. They would have had to melt it down and to be usable.
And
So
from Egypt.
right. Well, I know a lot of it was, but even then, that it was just abundant and available. They could just go get it. And like where today you can walk forever and you might find a flake. You know what I mean? So just kind of putting that together, and like they knew what God required and they were available, but then also God made it available to them, where today we wouldn't be able to do that, not by our own natural shovel and dirt buckets, but it just made me think about how much actually they had to bring. And we just kind of read over and like, oh yeah, they brought some silver, no big deal. And it was a huge deal even back then.
Well, I think why it keeps repeating itself about different ones bringing stuff, and it keeps on, different names but the same stuff, is to show that he provided everything for them. That was from him. That wasn't from them. That's what one of the emphasis, probably their other emphasis is on that repetition, because it is everything that's in the scriptures is for a reason. It ain't just because it's just a bunch of words.
It made me think about how they must have gotten together ahead of time to make these utensils and everything for, their procession. And they were brought according to how they march out, each group, their procession. And I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not, but I did kind of try to picture all of them getting together and making these bowls and melting things down and putting all this stuff together before they did this day by day by day thing.
That's awesome. I'm sure it's orderly, very orderly, and pretty neat. If you could look back, and say, wow, a little assembly line going on in each little part of their community. Like their.
How they have the wagons they were given and the oxen they were given to pack up their stuff according to how much they had. Like one group took care of the poles and the real heavy stuff, and that's the one that got the bigger amount of
Yeah.
carts and oxen and all.
And probably when they got there, they probably were, like you said, in a procession. Whoever got there first to reach that site where they're supposed to put the tent back up, they had that first part ready.
Yeah.
And then they kept falling in line, falling in line. Isn't that awesome? How the Father works?
Think of how many people they had. They told you how many people were working with each group, and what their responsibilities were, and it's really hard to picture.
Yeah.
And see, and that what like with the Korah and them, when they saw all this stuff, you know, they were amazed, but they were jealous,
They were jealous.
and they were prideful and rebellious,
Right.
and that's what had them. And I think they were drinking alcohol at the time. They were doing all this craziness too. So you know, they were in their flesh. They saw it, but they wouldn't believe it. They wouldn't be and humble themselves before their Father. And of course, it's shown by them doing what they did to Moshe. And
One thing,
Yeah.
one thing that's interesting to what you're saying, Jonathan, is now all this wealth is collective from each tribe. It's not like there's one guy that's got all this money, but at the same time, it wasn't long ago that they were asked to bring forth their gold and stuff to help build the elements for the tabernacle, and they said, okay, we've got enough. So this is some of that excess that's coming back. Yeah.
Yes.
So my question is, with them bringing these utensils, because my mind is fixed on the visual picture. Are the utensils uniform? Because they're talking about the weight, but at the same time we're also talking about each individual tribe. So my mind is looking at are all the utensils exactly the same, or are they like with each individual tribe have, because when they're in their marching order and like Louise was saying, they're carrying their banners. Is their banner somewhat attached to like how the each dish is brought forward? Does it have like this is
Seal or something.
yeah seal
kind of
for each
family
individual?
seal.
And that's where my mind is going on the visual picture.
Could be. This is a good question.
And another thing that my mind is drawn to is the let's see because each tribe is bringing forth a 1-year-old male lamb, and I look at the lamb as Yeshua, and then I'm also looking at the goat as the sin offering as Azazel when they're. That's what my mind is drawn to also as we're looking through chapter 7.
So my opinion is that all the artifacts were the same, almost probably exactly, because they were going in the temple, and most things in the temple were orderly and purposeful, and God designed it must be this measurement, made out of this wood, covered in this kind of flour. So I wouldn't imagine, just based on the other descriptions, that it'd be different, but it's possible. But also, I was talking about more of the silver and gold, that silver to melt it down is like 1700 degrees, 1763, I believe it was. And like average campfire, big giant fires like 1200. So even then, like they probably would have had some kind of group effort to get all their silver melted down, and they probably would have used the same cast and mold. That's a very specific, difficult job to do, and they're not exactly in the metropolitan areas of
Right.
refineries and things we have today.
And then that made us showed favoritism, and that's what the Father does. He doesn't favor. But they could have been like some form of a stamp, because I mean they are going to be the tribes are going to be in the New Jerusalem as the elders. So maybe in that aspect, but not maybe in the measurement or the design maybe or something. I don't know. No. That's a good question.
It is a
Yeah.
good question.
And it's a possibility. I mean,
I kind of thought that too. Well, maybe they had their
Yeah.
own unique.
but maybe just in just the actual maybe just the actual formation was what the father's stamp was. And like you said, there might be something in there with them on there. They're held up to be, elders later on.
I just wanted to thank Louise for bringing up the part about how this was a community-wide effort. You read that last section, starting in verse 84, where it summarizes. There were the 12 dishes, the 12 bowls, the 12 whatever, and the fact that they were all the same weight. Maybe they were uniform, maybe they weren't in terms of their physical design, but they were uniform in terms of the weight, the quantity of this precious thing that was being presented. And I just think of it as a picture of the body of Messiah, that he wants us to do what they did, to come together as a whole, not as some fragmented 12 tribes or whatever. We're not separate groups. We are one body, and that's his desire for us.
One day. One day. I think he's calling a lot of people now to get together, not based off a denomination and all that, but the ones 100% with him, all in, all for him, and humble to get rid of that pride, get rid of that our own will, get his will in there. Do this, and I think that's when we're going to be coming together to fight some of the stuff that he wants us to go up against, to proclaim his glory, to bring people to him when the kingdom comes and Yeshua comes back as King of Kings to set up his kingdom. I don't think that's too far off. I mean, I don't know. Compared to what it has been. I'm not going to make any assumptions of time.
One thing I like about this dedication is each day is dedicated to one tribe. I mean, the tabernacle is being dedicated, but it's given the time for each tribe to do their part in dedicating it, instead of like just cramming it all together, trying to rush through it and get it done, like we probably try to do. Each tribe comes up and they do their dedication. They give their offerings and all that stuff, and it gives the priest time to do the sacrifices and all this stuff. And so it's neat that the Father had that in place instead of, because it does kind of keep it from being jealous too, because okay, each tribe gets their own day to do the dedication. So and kind of in a way, the tribes are being honored too by being allowed to be a part of this dedication. And everybody's given the same thing, so it can't be like, well, so and so gave this. Not, it's done in a I guess you would use the word fair, but it's done in a way that everybody gets their opportunity. And their name is honored, their tribal name is honored, and
it does show equality. Everybody brings the same thing. I think that's another thing he's showing. It's not one does more than the other. It's that thing where if you're trying to be like your top, he'll put you on the bottom, vice versa. So you got to be humble. There's nowhere else to go when you're humble. You can only go up, right? So he'll rise you up. So what he wants you to be to glorify him.
it does show a oneness or a unity or a single-mindedness. They're all coming together for the same purpose.
I do have a question. Do we know any kind of like time frame this was? Like, was it a jubilee year? Or was it any kind of like date distinction of when this event happened to like kind of move forward with maybe an alternate purpose or more depth to it, or was it just a time in history?
It was in June.
Well, yeah. Well,
That's when the Torah portion is, right?
it's
So
6
that's the-
months because they went by numbers, not by the names. 6 months. I don't know. Just teasing on that one. But
Good question, though.
next week we'll ask you, Jonathan, to reveal that. Who did?
Shane.
Oh, Shane? Oh, Shane? You can help Jonathan.
Yeah, that's right. I kind of want to go back to also back up a little bit back to the Nazarite vow. I think the importance of this also when we read this is when we make vows, the importance of, when you make a vow, it takes them back. I don't know exactly where it is in the Brit, but it talks about let your yes be yes and your no be no. And how important this was. And the thing about this too, and this is just me in my head thinking, it's almost like if you have these people, it's like, I just want to go deeper. I just want to get closer to God. God's like, okay, if you want to get closer to me, this is what you got to do. And it wasn't easy because not only did you not drink strong drink, you didn't touch anything. You didn't, and of course, I don't know what translation that Bill was reading today, but it actually said the word raisin in it. No dried fruit, and but you weren't allowed, and that's the part I'd like to know why. I can understand the strong drink because it could, let's face it, when you're intoxicated, you're not in your right mind, and you make bad decisions. And this kind of goes back to the two sons of Haran when they went before the Father with strange fire. We believe, the boys had been drinking a little too much when they did this, and were making the right decisions. But on this one, to take this vow, you cannot touch anything of the vine. Matter of fact, if you touch it says in here, if you touch a dead body, your vow starts over. So if you were right, I don't know how long a Nazarite vow is. Does anybody know?
I think it's 7 days.
Is it 7 days?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh.
It says on the 7th day or something. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It says on.
It says when he
cleanse
his cleansing on the 7th day, he shall shave. He's talking about shaving off his head.
Okay.
On the 8th day, he shall bring 2 turtle doves, 2 pigeons, and offerings. The priest shall offer one. It says and separate himself.
I think, Joe, the length of the vow depends on that person. What you do before God.
Like what you would actually say to Father, like I vow this time.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So, for example, with Samson, there in his case, God said that his Nazarite is gonna be
Like his whole life.
whole life.
Okay. That makes sense. But it was interesting though because in this one, if you broke it, it started over. So it wasn't like, it's okay, you messed up a little bit, don't worry about it. I was like, nope, we're gonna reset the clock back, man. So there was something to be said about when you took this vow. And again, I think it goes back to the seriousness of when Abba says something, how he is serious about it and doing it properly. And I think that's another reason why when we read through these particular Torah portions and they get very specific with the priestly duties and the different things, is God is showing them over and over again his character, one, and that these things aren't to be taken lightly. And we do see, because we get to see the story further down the road, that when they leave these instructions and they go after other gods, it brings that curse. When they break their vow to the Father, it brings nothing but curses to them. And God allows those curses to happen because he loves them, because he knows at some point they will cry out again to Abba Father. He will hear their voices, and it says, if my people will humble themselves, it goes back to that scripture. But I think just going back to this, it's interesting that this is put in here, and then right after that is the Aaron's blessing. So that was, I don't know. There's a tie-in with this I believe, between this Nazarite vow and then him speaking the blessing over the people as well. So anyway, 2 more shekels.
I think he's tying it in with the covenant between him and the people. Because I think that's what we're losing sight of these days is how strong that covenant is we're making when we're, like you said, saying yes to things of him,
Mm-hmm.
scriptures.
Making that vow.
Yeah, they're very, I mean, whether it's a little, what consider a little or big, that we're in covenant with him. And whatever we do, very serious when we don't take it seriously, you know? And that's why we go through a lot of hardships, I think, in our life, because we don't come to the realization of that or the knowledge of that. So, yeah, I think that is one of the things. That's why he ends up with talking about the bless and guard you and all that. Hey, he's gonna do that's some awesome stuff he's gonna do and put the name on you and all that. So, and I believe Moshe, because he wrote this down after all that stuff happened. So I believe he probably emphasized that too, that they need to take this very seriously. And who knows what else he said besides this. So, but yeah, I think that is tied into the covenant thing, that this is a very serious matter, just like the Nazarite. And he gave those instructions to the Nazarite. I mean, they didn't really just know out of the blue, hey, I won't eat raisins and strong drink. And he gave this to them, okay, how you want to get close to me? Okay, well, here, do this, this, and this. And I think some of that stuff back then was very important, how they did. It's like part of their, like, it would be like something in our everyday life that's important or thought to be very, and he's saying, okay, you got to withdraw from that stuff. They'll be like, wow, okay. I'm not used to not being without it, you know. So it's whatever they were accustomed to that was their, in part of their fleshly desire or whatever. Like the hair thing with shaving it. Their hair was like their beauty back then, especially women. So by shaving your head, that was kind of, so that was humbling themselves. That's what I'm trying to get at. They were being humbled in order to get closer to the Father.
I was actually thinking about you were saying about the hardship, like if you would break the vow, you would just go against the instructions. I was thinking about the life of Samson, how he went through all kinds of tribulations, and he was making mistakes, and then there was some price for all of that. So,
Well, I mean, pride and rebellion probably came in there too a little bit, and well, because sometimes we don't, unless it's real extreme, like we think about like Lucifer up in heaven being like rebellious, rebellion comes in. If you don't do what the Father says, you're rebellious. It's like a kid. I don't want to do that, and I'm not going to do that. I mean, they don't have to kick at you or scream at you. They just tell you, I'm not doing that. And that's a rebellious child, not listen to the parent. So just like with us, when we say we're not going to do that, even though we're supposed to be one of his children, that's being rebellious. That's being private. We're saying, well, our way's better, what we think is better, what we feel is better, and all that. So, yeah. So probably some of that, and he's a human. Samson was born in the flesh, and it's probably a lot of that stuff that happened to him. Or definitely when he gave that secret away to that lady, his flesh, carnality came over him, and she got it out of him.
The thing about the Nazarite vow too is that anybody could do it. So the priests are like set apart of this, set apart of this, set apart. Or just your regular Israelite, he could be set apart by doing the Nazarite vow. He could set himself apart from just your average Israelite, And so really, like chapter 6 is for all of Israel, because you have the Aaronic blessing that goes over the Israel, and so it kind of talking about that jealousy thing. How come the priests always get something to be set apart? Not that it's an easy road to go down, but there's always somebody out there. What can I do? Well, you could do the Nazarite vow, So it is something that your average believer could do if he wanted to do something to get closer to Yehovah or just to walk. Maybe there's some things in his life he needs to get through, and the Nazarite vow is a way to, like fasting and things like that, is a way that you can get more focused on your walk with the Father.
It has it in the notes that 5, all the days of his Nazarite vow, they're saying, and it's probably just tradition or something,
Mhm.
it says the minimum period of a Nazarism is 30 days.
Okay.
But a Nazarite who so deserves may adopt longer periods.
Yeah, because you do have like the case with John the Baptist, and you have Samson.
Life was a whole.
I have something on this topic of the Levites and Ryan usually asks this good question, like, hey, what about, so is this just for our Levites, or can we be inspired by that as well, etc. So if you go to Numbers chapter 6 and verse 22, it says, then Yehovah spoke to Moses, saying, speak to Aaron and to his sons, saying, thus you shall bless the sons of Israel. You shall say to them, and then it continues, Yehovah bless you and keep you. And it has the famous Aaronic blessing. And so I noticed that, I know that definitely our brother Judah does this blessing over the Jewish congregation, and I've basically most of the Messianic congregations that I've been part of, they would use the Aaronic blessing. So right there, I thought that was a good example that we get inspired by this because it's a blessing, right? It's something really good. But if you literally read it, it's specifically for the Levites to do that. So I thought that was a good example. Well, if we can get inspired by this, why we couldn't get inspired by the other Levitical, instructions? If God is drawing you to it, then just go be led by the Spirit.
Well, that goes into another thing about this Aaronic lesson. Is it like it says at the bottom on 27? It says, "Thus they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I myself shall bless them." But a lot. I mean, the blessings come with listening to what he says. It's not just okay. I'm gonna give them blessings, but I don't have to do anything. No, Father, like saying previously, if you do all these things, keep this, keep that, stay straight, stay in my ways, then I'll bless you. I think we take that for granted also today. We want all of the Father's blessings, but we don't want to do what the Father says. It's like a kid in the house. I want to do it, I want to do all this stuff. I want money, I want this and that, but they don't want to do anything in the house. Yeah, they just want to have fun and get all the blessings. Something to think about.
The Haftorah is Judges chapter 13, verses 2 through 25. We'll just do the whole chapter. Or verses 1 through 25. Anybody have anything else on the Torah portion? You all right, Ryan? You don't have any questions today?
Stayed.
Well, the mic is open.
Yeah,
It's open mic
stayed
night.
away.
Yeah.
We're up for it. Come on, we got our gloves on.
Got our gloves on.
Our boxing gloves. Yeshua's gloves.
Then we'll go to Judges 13 then. And again, the children of Israel did evil in the eyes of Jehovah. Jehovah gave them into the hands of the Philistines for 40 years. And there was a certain man from Sisera of the clan of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and had not born. And a messenger of Jehovah appeared to the woman and said to her, "See now, you are barren, and have not borne, but you shall conceive, and you shall bear a son. And now, please guard and do not drink wine or strong drink, and do not eat any unclean food. For look, you are conceiving and bearing a son. Let no razor come upon his head, for the youth is a Nazarite to Elohim from the womb on. And he shall begin to save Israel out of the hand of the Philistines." And the woman came and spoke to her husband, saying, "A man of Elohim came to me, and his appearance was like the appearance of the messenger of Elohim, very awesome. But I did not ask him where he was from, and he did not declare to me his name. And he said to me, See, you are conceiving and bearing a son, and now drink no wine or strong drink, nor eat any unclean food, for the youth is a Nazarite to Elohim from the womb to the day of his death." And Manoah prayed to Jehovah and asked, "O Jehovah, please let the man of Elohim whom you sent come to us again and teach us what to do for the youth who is to be born." And Elohim listened to the voice of Manoah, and the messenger of Elohim came to the woman again, as she was sitting in the field. But not Manoah, her husband, was not with her. And the woman ran hurriedly and informed her husband and said to him, "See, he has appeared to me, the man who came to me the other day." And Manoah arose and went after his wife, and came to the man. And he said to him, "Are you the man who spoke to this woman?" He said, "I am." And Manoah said, "Now let your words come true. What is to be the rule for the youth's life, his work? And the messenger of Jehovah said to Manoah, "Let the woman guard all that I said to her. Let her not eat any food that comes from the vine, neither let her drink wine or strong drink, or eat any unclean food. Let her guard all that which I have commanded her." And Manoah said to the messenger of Jehovah, "Please let us detain you and prepare a young goat for you." And the messenger of Jehovah said to Manoah, "Though you detain me, I do not eat for your food. But if you offer an ascending offering, offer it to Jehovah." Manoah did not know he was a messenger of Jehovah. Then Manoah said to the messenger of Jehovah, "What is your name? When your words come true, then we shall esteem you." And the messenger of Jehovah said to him, Why do you ask my name, since it is wondrous?" Manoah took the young goat with the grain offering and offered it up the rock of Jehovah. And he did wondrous while Manoah and his wife looked on. And it came to be, as the flame went up toward the heavens from the slaughter place, that the messenger of Jehovah went up in the flames of the slaughter place. And Manoah and his wife were watching, and they fell on their faces to the ground. And the messenger of Jehovah did not appear any more to Manoah and his wife. Then Manoah knew that he was a messenger of Jehovah. Manoah said to his wife, "We shall certainly die because we have seen Elohim." But his wife said to him, "If Jehovah had been pleased to put us to death, he would not have accepted an ascending offering and a grain offering from our hands, nor would he have shown us all this, nor would he have let us hear the like of this." So the woman bore a son and called his name Samson, and the child grew, and Jehovah blessed him. And the spirit of Jehovah began to move him as at Mahanadan between Tesora and Ethel. Something like that. Okay. Kind of makes you wonder how much of the Torah they were practicing, because he wasn't really aware of what the offerings meant, the Manoah guy, and then the messenger has to tell him her not to eat anything unclean. You kind of wonder, and there've been the Philistines have ruled over them for 40 years, or maybe not quite 40. But
They were from the tribe of Dan, so I wonder what went on with Dan's tribe.
anyway, just some thoughts, things I kind of pulled out of there. Yeah.
Sounds like she may have known the laws
Oh, yeah.
and the rules and
Her
prayed to have a child, and it took a while or whatever, and God blessed her. Because in here, where you were talking about to prohibit anything prohibited that she shall not eat, in mine it has in parentheses to a Nazarite.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe she had taken a Nazarite vow, and God honored her.
Yeah. Could be.
Okay, so my notes on here, it said, Samson's story is the last in the cycle of the judges. He had great promise. He was a Nazarite from the womb, and his birth was a supernatural gift to barren parents. Like the great judge Gideon, the angel of the Lord appeared at his calling. Unlike any other judge, he was called from the womb, and more than any other judge, he experienced the Spirit coming upon him. Yet, of all the judges, Samson was most clearly a rogue, having taken the vow to be a Nazarite. It said Samson's parents did not recognize the angel of the Lord. They saw a miraculous fire and then feared the consequences of having seen the angel of the Lord. These strong parallels pose the question whether Samson might not become as great a judge as Gideon. 3 times the Nazarite requirements are spelled out even before Samson is born. This repetition heightens their importance. And Samson's mother was barren, like Sarah, Rebekah, and Rachel, and the mother of Samuel. And that's it.
Thank you, Vicky.
I have a question about the significance of the long hair. Like in the verse 5, it says, "For behold, you will conceive and give birth to a son, and no razor shall come upon his head." Um, so, what do you guys think about the significance of hair and Samson then having a long hair and having all that strength, and then losing the hair and losing the strength? Do you think that there may be something in the kingdom of God that's on the physical level, some kind of principle, or do you think that it's just a purely spiritual, that you're just obeying the instruction of God, and therefore God is strengthening you? What do you guys think?
I think that the hair part is about the Nazarite vow, because shaving your head means you just ended the vow. And so as long as he stayed under the vow, he stayed strong. So the hair is just a representation of the vow being ended. And then once his hair grows back, like you said, when you touch a dead body, the vow starts over. Although he killed a lot of people, so
Yeah.
so it's kind of an interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about even before then, because he got in a fight with the Philistines and stuff like that.
With the
several times.
jawbone of the donkey.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. But I do think that the whole shaving of the head is a representation that you're finished with the vow itself. And so, although he was dedicated from birth, from life to death, so that I think that's what God had put there, that, okay, if he shaves his head, he's going to lose the strength that I gave him. He didn't put the clause in there. If he grows it back, he's going to get his strength back. But, yeah.
I want to throw in 2 shekels on that too. I think, of course, we're talking about everything right now is about being set apart. And when people see us, if you do wear tzitzits, then people may recognize and say, "Oh, what?" Or they may ask you, "What is that?" And you explain what that is. And I think there's a part of there's set apartness to that, because we're doing something that sets us apart from somebody else. Because most Christians don't wear tzitzits. Most Jewish people who wear tzitzit wear them tucked in. They're not visible. And so we're a set apart group of people that Abba's called by name. And so Samson, from birth, it would be very obvious to anyone, I'm sure, that this wasn't a hidden thing about the Nazirite vow. So when they saw him, they would immediately identify who he was or what he was connected to. Because I'm sure, I don't know what the age of Samson was. I haven't read a story in a while of it. It explains. But, it doesn't take long. Many years of your hair growing out, it's very obvious that, this is probably who you are, and this sets you apart. And so when his hair is cut, one of the things that happens is you're no longer set apart. And because that vow is now broken, the consequences of that is now that, because it says, and when you read the story, it says, "And the Spirit of the Lord would come upon Samson." It wasn't like he could walk up to a bench press and he pull it and it hit 500 pounds. Okay, so I worked it in there. They'd work it in there. It wasn't like he's gonna walk up. It was when it said the Spirit of the Lord came upon him. Then these things happened, because he was set apart. But then when his hair was cut, it therefore broke the vow, and therefore the Spirit of the Lord did not come upon him. When she cries out, "Samson, Samson, the Philistines are upon you," he gets up and doesn't even realize that he didn't have his strength any longer. What that really means is he didn't realize the Holy Spirit was no longer with him. And so you see that, like we're going to the story a little bit more, is that when he is doing the work of a mule and he's grinding, he's doing all that stuff, and his hair does start to grow back. And he gets that one last time where there's a repentance in his heart. You see that. I feel like, at least I feel that when he says, "Let me just one more time fulfill what you brought me here to do." And of course, he dies along with everyone else. But it says, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it says he killed more in that one day than he had in his entire life. So these are always things that we look at. What is it about us, or what is it about our individual person that sets us apart? You know what I'm saying? Like keeping the Sabbath sets us apart. Keeping the feast days sets us apart. You know, wearing the tzitzit sets you apart. There's certain things that we do that sets us apart. And when people see that, they recognize it. They may ask questions or they may not ask questions. They may not care. But again, going back to the story of Samson, I believe that when now think about this, from the time of birth, so his mother's barren, which means she probably couldn't have children. But God says you are going to have a child, but now he's going to be set apart to me. Remember the prayer of Hannah? Hannah's in the temple. She's praying. And what does she? Now she makes a vow and says, now I will give you, if you give me this child, I will give him back to you. And that's exactly what happened. She gave him back. And so through all of this Torah portion we're looking at, to me, this is all about being set apart. When the 12 tribes are bringing their utensils, they're bringing the bowls, they're doing all these things, they're doing something they probably never did before, and the Father's teaching them, you're set apart. But not only are you set apart as in the 12 tribes, well, like Ted said earlier, but the great part of that is they're all doing this together as a community. It wasn't like each tribe was doing whatever they wanted. God's like, by the way, if you're going to be set apart, you're going to be a part of my kingdom, this is what you're going to do. And when they did that, I'll go back to this. I even thought about them when you, Shane, you were talking about when they made utensils. They probably had blacksmiths within the community. Or maybe they just had like this one part of that big community where these guys, they made things. And they all took the order to that guy and said, by the way, we need this made. And then all of a sudden, 12 or 11 more guys show up behind them and say, we need this made. We need this made. We need this made. And so those blacksmiths were all probably given the same orders. This is what you're to make. This is the weight of it. This is how what it's gonna look like. And so it was probably all very, in my opinion, it was probably very uniform. Everything that was brought. It wasn't like just anybody in the 12. The chief priests weren't probably, or the chiefs over the tribes weren't making these utensils. They were going to those who were set apart and had the skill of that craftsmanship that were able to make all of these different things. So there's 4 shekels for you on that one. So,
Yeah, I
So,
think-
Jonathan, what is a shekel in modern money?
like a money amount.
like the monetary amount of a shekel
just
today, what would that be? Like $1? Yeah. I already saw the smile on Redeem's face as soon as the number 26 came out. 26, yes.
I saw the finger.
I think it was like a 130. What was the amount? 130 something that they were. All the 12 tribes, they were bringing the silver and the gold, and it said something. It was repeating 130 over and over. Yeah, and then 70, and then the 5. It was like a 5 ram, 5 bulls by 5 lambs. And so I did the math really quickly. I was like 130 divided 5. Oh, 26.
Oh, gold nugget.
And just to give you an idea, too, if you care, just for the abundance of precious metals back then, the top part of the pyramid in Giza, the largest pyramid, that top part you see in the pictures where it looks like it's that top triangle part's a little bit separated from the rest of it, looks a little bit different. That entire cap of that was capped in gold. That's a lot of gold. A lot of gold. So just kind of give you an idea of the amount of the abundance of precious metals that they were capable of having back then. So.
Not even counting the gold that they stole from the Aztecs. Spaniards. Big plane. All that weight.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting too in the story where, let me see if I can find it real quick. Where it's like they were going to pay homage to the guy, and it was kind of like, I think this is why a lot of times we're not, because people are people, and I think this is why a lot of times, like when you read stories like when an angel or messenger shows up, not all of them show up giving names, because people have the tendency back then all of a sudden give too much, like whoa, hey, don't look at me this way. Matter of fact, I am not going to eat your food, but why don't you go ahead and give it as an ascending offering to Jehovah? So I thought that was cool. Whoever this messenger was realizing like he didn't in any way want to take any glory or be glorified in any way in what was happening. Matter of fact, I thought it was really cool that he said, why don't y'all, when you do this, give it back to him and give him the glory in this. You know, go ahead, Redeem.
That stood out to me as well, and especially I really like how he says, why don't you just do the offering and bring it, give it to God, like right there on spot. So like back then, he didn't have to go to Jerusalem and to the temple, just at home, bam, for God, right here.
Yep.
And so I think that later on it has changed that they couldn't do the sacrifices at every place because they were doing it on the top of the hills and all of that. So God said, bring it in, bring it to my temple, to my house, But it's an interesting change. It stood out to me, like right there, just do the sacrifice at your home, So.
Yeah, and that's good stuff.
Yeah,
Yes.
Angela and I were. Yeah.
What's
Angela and I
that?
were talking about what he sacrificed. Yeah, it was on something about a rock.
Yeah, it says it offered it on, and that was verse 19. It says they offered it on the rock to the Lord, to the one who works wonders. Yeah. Well, remember too, if I'm not mistaken, none of the altars could be made out of man. It had to be from, can't be from hone, or what, how do you say it? Had it unhewn. Yeah, there you go. Stone. So this had to be something that wasn't man-made, also. So.
And this is Judges. It was before the kings, so the actual temple was not built at this time. So wherever the tabernacle was.
Yeah, and it was in verse 18, by the way. It says, or actually, it's back up to 17. It says, and Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "What is your name, so that when your words come true, we may honor you?" That probably made that messenger step back a little bit and go, "Whoa, wait a minute, hold on, man." Whoa.
Yeah, Angela and I were talking about who the messenger could be, and we were thinking it was Gabriel. And then when you get to the Brit, they're talking about John the Baptist. It's Gabriel in that particular case. So it may have been Gabriel. He's the angel over Israel.
Gabriel's like, "I ain't playing that."
Well, I think there's a lot of political stuff going on with those. Was it the Philistines that they were fighting?
Yeah.
So they were under oppression.
Yeah,
It wasn't like they were just walking around all free and everything. They were oppressed by the Philistines. That's why Samson had to come into the picture to set it straight, be the judge.
Be judged correctly, yeah.
It's in the first verse where it says,
So the altar and all that stuff, I mean, they probably didn't have any except for right there. So make do with what's going on because rest.
they were
Well,
in the hands of the Philistine for 40 years at that point.
yeah. The Philistines were a nasty group too, man. That was it wasn't like being under the Roman reign. This is a whole different mindset here. Yeah, I thought was pretty cool too was the fact that you wonder what the look on their faces was when the angel of the Lord went up in the flame of the altar. Like all of a sudden he's there with them, all of a sudden it's like
And then they,
that's kind of like you know what I mean? Like oh. Some supernatural.
well, they fell on their faces. That's what it says.
Oh yeah.
Which I think all of us would.
I like to see what their face looked like at first. They were like, look at each other like, what?
Right, yeah.
So another question, because I'm looking at the ascending offering, and in chapter 7 out of Numbers, we were talking about the ascending offering being the lamb versus them bringing a goat, and I'm assuming it's because it is what they had to offer due to the means that they had available.
Probably.
Is
Probably.
that what we're looking at?
I think sometimes you can alternate the two. If you
Yeah.
don't have
Yeah.
a lamb, you can use a goat.
They were oppressed, so they weren't living high on the hog. They were in this like little
High on the
community,
hog.
all
Yeah.
poor people, because that's one of the things they would try to take from is their food. Philistines to get them to kind of like worship them or whatever, do their thing. Very
Dagon.
oppressed people.
I have a question on the topic of we were talking about hair with the man, but I also notice with the hair with the woman because it gets mentioned in the Torah portion in the Numbers chapter 5, and it's verse 18. It says the priest shall then have the woman stand before Yehovah and let the hair of the woman's head go loose. And there are different translations of that passage. Some say had her
Shave.
hair uncovered, or some say loose. Some say it's a different.
You're talking about the time when she's drinking the bitter water.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
But she
so you're
comes
talking
before
about
the priest.
Nazarite. Okay.
Yeah, it says uncovered, so I guess that's what it means. The hair's let down
Yeah.
versus having the head covering on.
Yeah, so that's my actually question. What do you guys think about? It doesn't sound to me like it's anywhere commanded in the scriptures to have a hair like a cover that you have to do it, but I wonder if that was the culture of the kingdom to actually for married, like this would be a married woman to actually have a hair covered. I know that when I was growing up in Europe. In not so much in the cities, but in the rural area in the country,
Villages?
like a married woman would have actually hair covered. So I was a little bit thinking about like the principle behind it, and I could see maybe that there was some wisdom in it, because the beauty of a woman is in hair. Like, right, if you shave your hair, you're probably not gonna get too many dating invitations, right?
Yeah, right.
So I could see, so that would be maybe something that you would keep it as a special for your husband, and also it would maybe not create temptations for men, and so I wonder if there was maybe some wisdom behind the covering of hair. I don't know. Anyone?
There's two things. There is the religious aspect of it, because I think it's in Paul talks about the woman's hair is the glory of her husband or something, and they covered up. But also we got to imagine these women worked, and so they got to get their hair up out of their
Yeah,
face,
try
and
to
they
keep
get
it
caught
clean.
into the mill and stuff like that, so they keep their hair up. I mean, that would be one reason why they would have their hair up. But I think a lot of it too is it goes back to being modest and not having really anything revealed to the community. You know, it's that culture, I believe. And it wasn't in just the Israelites; it was other cultures too. You see that throughout the world. I don't think it's a command either. It's more of a cultural thing, I think.
No, I mean, I'm just thinking, like, if you use it for today, because I know there are some places, I know some people today, and not in your, within our walk, that do head covering, and if that's your conviction, fine.
It depends on the material too. Like if you use a nylon, that's gonna be hot. If you use like
Silk
linen or
scarves.
something, linen is breathable. So
The way that I saw, like the women in my country, they would actually have the head covering. It's kind of like from here, but then in the back it was open, I would say from the bottom, so it wasn't completely like they would have the hair up, and then the covering kind of like over, but the bottom was like open or something, so it was breathing, I think.
It's almost like wearing a scarf over your
Yeah,
head.
yeah.
You know, like they did back in the, like my brothers, not my brother, my sisters in the 70s or something. They put like a thing over their head. Sometimes they do that. So yeah, it's not totally covered, but and sometimes they braid their hair. Like you said, they'll put it up. I've seen that, and then do the scarf thing around it.
I used to wear them, and they're called snoods, and they're made like a net, so your scalp can breathe. They're made like crocheted netting. I'll bring some.
I think you wear one sometimes, don't you? Or you or something? Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Go to Luke, chapter 1, 11 through 20. And a messenger of Yahweh appeared to him, standing on the right side of the slaughter place of incense. And when Zechariah saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. But the messenger said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zechariah, for your prayer is heard, and your wife Elizabeth shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name John. And you shall have joy and gladness, and many shall rejoice at his birth. For he shall be great before Yahweh, and shall drink no wine and strong drink at all. And he shall be filled with the set-apart spirit, even from his mother's womb. And he shall turn many of the children of Israel to Yahweh their Elohim. And he shall go before him in the spirit and the power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the insight of the righteous, to make ready a people prepared for Yahweh." And Zechariah said to the messenger, "But what shall I know this? For I am old, and my wife advanced in years." And the messenger answering said to him, "I am Gabriel, who stands in the presence of Elohim, and was sent to speak to you and announce to you this good news. But see, you shall be silent and unable to speak until the day this takes place, because you did not believe my words, which shall be filled in their appointed time." Literally. Literally.
see, now you're gonna get talking. Yeah. What's interesting is it doesn't mention anything about a Nazarite. It just gives the same prescription that you would have to do for a Nazarite.
Yes.
Yeah.
But even at that, he doubted. Talked to them. Then they were scared, but this is going a little further. That he was dead in there because remember he took a while to come out, and the people were like, "What? You don't hear any bells or whatever." And he comes out. Like what?
Yank on the rope.
We're gonna throw the rope in and we out. Lasso.
So this is where I wish they would just go. They would back the story up a little bit more, because I think, and if you go back at least up to verse 5 in Luke 1, it's given a little bit of a backstory here. So you see, it answers the question of Zechariah being in the service of the Father, and this goes back to the Torah portion of the service of the Levites and what they were doing. And so when you see this, it says that both in verse 6 says, and they were both righteous before God, both Zechariah and his wife Elizabeth, and they were both righteous before God, walking blamelessly in all the commandments and statutes of the Lord, but they had no child because Elizabeth was barren, and both were advanced in years. So we have another story of an older couple here. It says, now while he was serving as priest, this is where I wish they kind of would have given that little bit of, so in his service, he says, while he was serving as priest before God, when his division was on duty, according to the custom of the priesthood, he was chosen by lot. So he was chosen by lot, casting of lots to enter the temple of the Lord and burn incense. And the whole multitude of the people were praying outside of the hour of incense, and they appeared to him, and there appeared to him an angel of the Lord standing on the right side of the altar of incense. So can you imagine? We actually, this is where our men's group, where we've actually just started in Luke 1, and we got to, what did we get to, guys? Verse 18? About verse 18 we got to, because there's so much in this. Because when we were on the men's retreat, we even talked about the burning of incense, and let's see, we were talking about the burning, or who was it that brought up about the words in the incense? Was that Nick? Yeah. So Nick brought up something good about that, about the incense and the importance of the incense. And all, so we were diving into this big time. So to go back to this is kind of really cool, because he says your prayers have been heard, and we were talking about the incense and the bowls of incense that are in Revelation. It talks about the prayers of the saints being collected in the incense, basically in the bowls of the incense. So the importance of that. And then again, this angel shows up, and it frightens Zechariah, because all of a sudden he's praying. All of a sudden, I don't know what Gabriel looks like. He can't be some. He could be, but he's got to be. If he's an angel that actually stands before Jehovah, that's a big boy, a bigger boy. So when Zechariah sees him, it was probably very startling. He probably thought, first of all, what did I do wrong? Angels coming to take me out, man. But and again, through the whole story, the thing that stood out to me was also the fact that he was like, hey, you didn't believe the words I spoke to you. See, Zechariah is set apart. If to be in that priesthood, you're set apart. In that duty that you're doing, you're set apart. And so when the angel of the Lord showed up, it almost should have been like you're understanding, and the angel starts speaking to you. And now you're going to question what the angel's speaking to you, and the duty of what you're doing, and then the importance of who you are representing Jehovah. And by the way, since you didn't believe my words, I'm not going to let you talk till what everything I've told you happens. And what was interesting is if Andrew, we could have kept reading that story, but it talks about where was it when he came out? Where was it? Towards the end there. It says, and the people were waiting on Zechariah, verse 21, and they were wondering at his delay in the temple. Again, we might have thought, well, he bit it. God done. Wow. And when he came out, he was unable to speak to them, and they realized that he had seen a vision in the temple. So there was something about that interaction there that there was the people could put those two connections together, and he kept him and he kept making signs to them and remained mute. So he's trying to like angel really big,
He was doing the sign.
you know. So I think it's a really neat story though, but
Well, the thing is, I think, even though the father understood everything, it was probably just a little play on that thing about him being not speaking, which he didn't speak until he went and announced what the name of his son was going to be when he got circumcised or whatever. So, but at the same time, with the legalities of spiritual stuff, I mean, you can't get away with things, So that's why it's like, well, you didn't believe, and it sounded like he talked a while with the angel. The people were like wondering why isn't he coming out? So he had a lengthy conversation with Gabriel. Who knows? Gabriel might say, "Hey, now, sure you don't believe me? You sure? Oh, I'm old, and okay. Well, here you go. You can't speak."
well, I mean, Abraham said the same thing.
Yeah.
What do you mean we're having a
Yeah.
kid? I'm old
Yeah.
and I'm advanced in the years, and But the other part that might have delayed him too, I think, is the fact he's like, what am I going to do when I walk out and I can't tell anybody anything? You know what I'm saying? Like all of a sudden
Yeah.
you can't talk.
He'll remember that moment for a long time.
When his son John was old enough, let me tell you what happened to Daddy before you were born.
When you think about it, he's the father, so he would have authority, and if he spoke doubt,
Uh-huh.
so that's why the angel was like, shut it up, So yeah, it was probably on his benefit. Whether it looks like maybe the angel was picking at him, but yeah, especially being the priest, and then being the husband and father. Everybody's like, well, what's going on? And he's like, well, I saw this angel, and he started spreading any doubt that may cause problems, especially with who John was supposed to be. The significance of who he was supposed to be.
It seems weird because if you keep reading, Elizabeth conceived, but she hid herself for the next 5 months.
I just read that. Yeah.
So it was like, it's a good thing he didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I had about 412 thoughts on this one, but
Just one.
with that part about that she was kind of conceived but yet stayed hidden, I thought it was interesting that Mary ends up conceiving about 6 months into John's birth or conception, and that time frame lines up pretty close because you would think Mary having the same angel experience, the same worldly impossible birth, immediately goes and like, hey, just want you to know what just happened. And she's like, oh, well, guess what also just happened? We're both of us are kind of divinely impregnated. And, they would have had some shared commonality there, as well as, the baby leapt in her womb. So then you see a lot of connections already forming, like even before, you just kind of see it playing out, like very God appointed. Like this has to happen this way, which has to happen this way,
Lining up.
which is probably a big reason of why John wasn't able to speak, because there's more to the story.
Zechariah.
Zachary.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Whew. Zechariah.
I'm just.
And you see kind of where, you start to sow doubt in the Messiah coming, and that has to be perfect, and it has to happen according to Scripture, according to all the prophecies, exactly perfect. And if Zechariah's out there sowing doubt or causing confusion, then we could have some potential issues there. This is another example of the whole abortion thing. It goes way back, babies being called what they are and being spoken over and leaping and having things going on way before birth. So that whole argument goes in the trash. And then I thought that it was kind of interesting too that when Gabriel came to him, he said, you will have joy, you will call his name. So it was like, he truly is giving him like dictation of information. You do this and this and this and this. This is how you're going to feel. So he almost, a message from God, knew his heart and said, I heard your prayers, or God's heard your prayers, and this is the message he has for you. And he says, this is how you're going to feel. Like, man, that's kind of crazy. How do you know how I'm going to feel? What if I was scared or, not worried or whatever? He's like, nope, you're going to be happy. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. And then he goes and says, he will. And he's talking about John. He's going to do this, and he's going to do this, and he's going to do that. So he's prophesying over him before he's ever even conceived. And he already knows exactly what things are going to happen, why, when. And again, it's that very orderly chain of events that has to go down exactly perfect for 6 months later, for Jesus to be conceived, and then for all the things to play out exactly the way they were meant to.
Yep. I think this is all that they talk about as far as when it comes to Zacharias. But he was obviously a Levite. And so then that would make John a Levite.
Wouldn't it seem to you like maybe God had a plan for him and he didn't step into it?
Could be.
What do you mean?
Like he saw or he experienced this. He was zipped shut. I'm sure he had a lot to think about during the time he couldn't talk. But knowing who his son would be and knowing the scriptures about the Messiah to come, it seems to me like God had a plan for his life to maybe when he did open his mouth, he could somehow usher in or proclaim Yeshua and who he was.
Yeah.
But he didn't do it. It seems that way.
Yeah.
That would be a shame too. Now I heard them. I don't know if this is true or what. That could be just a rabbinical thing. I guess I should look it up to see if it's true or not. But supposedly, the reason why John went, well, Father wanted him to be in the wilderness, but he got drove to the wilderness is because there's something about Zachariah's his dad getting killed or something. I don't know. Now, I don't know if they have that confused with that Zechariah that's the one with the Ahab and Jezebel. Remember the one that got falsely accused and then they killed him? Jezebel had him killed or whatever. Because they wanted that vineyard or something. But anyway, they were saying there were some more things, but I think it's rabbinical stuff. Talks about Zechariah and then why John was in the wilderness and living out there and kind of like his mourning his dad or something. But I don't know if that was it could not be a true thing. I don't know if anybody ever heard about that.
Well, they were both, him and his mother were both considered righteous. And so there was a lot of corruption within the priesthood and stuff. So maybe they ran him out of there because of, or like
And
said, maybe had him killed.
And they didn't, like Messiah, of course. And maybe to keep John from being hurt, Father was like, go to the wilderness, Even though he thought maybe he was doing it out of mourning or whatever. But then that feeding of getting ministered to by the Father to build him up to come out of the wilderness to go bring in the Messiah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because both his parents are older, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, some of the studies I've done was that Zechariah, that his lineage was part of the Zadoks. So they're going back to the Qumran caves and all that different things like that. And that's why when you find John immersing, he's immersing actually very far away. He's actually immersing near where the Qumran caves would be at. And that's why the Pharisees make their trip all the way out there to him to see what's going on. And kind of Chris touched on a little bit because there's a lot more corruption going on with the Pharisees and the Sadducees and all that stuff that's going on with the political power. And there not being a legitimate priesthood actually operating in the temple at that time. And so they're almost on the outskirts, keeping with the Father's appointed times and his appointed things that he's doing. And that's why, Yeshua he's going out there to the Jordan, where that part of the Jordan was located was actually near the Qumran caves. So you see that's where Yeshua travels out to also to be immersed by John the Baptist. So just a little bit more history on that also. So what's going on? Because that's why they're so tough on because when the Pharisees show up, if you go back to John, you read in the book of John, and the Pharisees show up, John the immerser goes, "Hey, who told you of the impending whatever coming, you brood of vipers?" He's laying into them because he knows who they are and what they represent. So anyway, another 2 shekels. And then the thing you talked about earlier about verse 24 and 25, I think it was you, Louise, or who brought that up about her being hidden for 5 months. It says, "And after these days his wife Elizabeth conceived, and for 5 months she kept herself hidden, saying, Thus the Lord has done for me in the days when he looked on me to take away my reproach among people." And maybe that reproach he's referring to is because there was a blessing when you gave birth, when you had children. It was a blessing, and I think that's why when we're reading the story at the very beginning, it's very clear to say that that they were both righteous. Her and Zechariah were both righteous, and they basically were walking with the Lord. Because people would, in this light today, people would look upon a situation and go, "Well, you must have sinned. That's why it happened." We know that happened to Fred, Pastor Fred at Northwoods, when his daughter died. That people accused him of having sin in his life, and that's why his daughter died of cancer. And I was like, that's rough, boy, and that's wrong. And so people in this time, they would look upon a lady if she didn't have a child at a certain time. Well, you must have done something wrong. And so at the beginning of the story, I think that's why it's very clear that God does say in the story that they were both blameless, basically using that word blameless before him, and they were righteous before him. So would you want to add something to it?
The number, the 5 that was repeated today in the Torah portion about the sacrifices was 5 of this, 5 of that, 5 of that, and then you were talking about hiding for 5 months. It's almost like personal sacrifice. So that's the connection that I saw.
You remember at Northwoods when his daughter did die, that there came several couples who had lost their children to be ministered to.
Yep.
And what was sad about that was there were other very affluent pastors and evangelists that said that the reason their child wasn't
Healed.
healed from, I think she had leukemia,
She had some form of cancer. I know that.
was because of sin. I was like, wow, that was,
You know what I was thinking too about the
uplifting,
the John like being hidden too. Well, I don't know where they lived exactly, but that was when Herod was trying to kill those babies too. That's when Messiah had to go away, and maybe that's why she was kind of high because they're only like 6 months apart or something in age, and then all that craziness going on because it was a bad time when they were being born in that time period with Rome and all that, and so they might have been seeking and they might not have been the corrupt priests, and see the priests were in with the Rome and all that stuff.
They're getting Hellenized.
So that's probably why they came up with that thing about him when he got older. He got drove into the wilderness to keep safe because they could have killed him before his mission was ready for them bringing the Messiah. Because that was his whole mission of being born, was to usher in the Messiah.
Even knowing that he's not the Messiah, but he is somebody important that is going to give trouble to the government or the religious authorities. So it might have been why they kind of kept him a secret until he was ready to come out and do his ministry.
Herod didn't like him, remember, because he kept telling him about his life. Oh. Well, he arrested him, of course.
So real quick, Redeem brought up the verse earlier about from the. I was trying to connect the original from Numbers, and they said whenever if she was found to be faithful and didn't have any issues, then they would go and have children. And I was like, that finally was the connection. I was like, because these two, Zechariah and Elizabeth, were still remained faithful. There was no accusation brought up against her or any kind of ill negativity, and so I think that may be, at least in my brain, the connection finally I found. Like, was like, what do these have to do with each other? So.
Oh, yeah.
That's like an old school switch operator. You found. Oh, I know where that goes. There you go.
Did you like a mint, Jonathan? That was pretty good.
Hey, I'm kind of low on the mints, Bo. Be careful.
One left. Uh-oh, crack.
Did it open up? There's a whole bag of it, maybe.
Did it crack open?
No, the bag's gone, man.
Kids must have got it.
Kids tearing me up, Bo. For the ones who do ask.
To wrap it up, does anybody have anything else? Any more numbers, Redeem? 26, 5,
5, 26.
7.
But now that you ask, and since you mentioned the number 7, I'll
I just mentioned it.
He just mentioned it. So that's something that actually me and Jonathan we were researching on one specific topic. I'm not gonna go too deep into it, but what stood out to me in this Torah portion from the chapter, what was it? Chapter 4, Numbers chapter 4. It's talking about, it says, it repeats over and over that from the 30 years and upward, even to 50 years old, all who enter the service to do the work in the tent of meeting. So it's talking about the Levites working in the tent of meetings in the age 30 to 50. And then once you hit 51, you become, I guess, like a teacher, and you dedicate yourself to teaching the Word of God and instructing and helping the younger. And so I posted. He brought it up in the men's group, and I posted the verses from the chapter 4, and it was mentioned from the 30 to 50, and it was in verse 3. 23, 30, 35, 39, 43, and 47, and so when you actually add it up, it mentions total of 7 times in that passage. And then we were researching, we were talking about the deacons that are mentioned in Acts chapter 6, and it says that they appointed that the elders that they actually needed to, they decided to basically appoint deacons, and guess how many deacons? 7. 7. So since I was not gonna say anything, but since you mentioned that, hey, there you have it.
It was divine. Had to say divine appointment.
I wish growing up you were my math teacher, because if you were teaching, we'd all know the answers. So guess what that adds up to? 26. Yes, you get an A for the day.
Except we were like on was it Shavuot, and me and Shalana, we were actually talking about some prophetic dreams and stuff like that, and we're just like preparing the bread and wine for the communion, and so we're just pouring, and we're like, we finished, and all the cups, it was exactly 7 rows by 7, and so we poured total of 49 cups without thinking about that, doing anything, you know. And so I'm telling the story to Joe, and says, "Guess how many cups it was?" And Joe was 26.
I always fall back on 26. I'm 26.
You know, you
Oh.
probably got shorted a cup.
Yeah. You know, but that's something though with that, because this year in particular, through the prayer, the team that was here, a lot of prophetic words have been spoken. 49's been brought up a lot. So that's something I think we really need to, like, don't pack it away. That needs to be something we keep in the front part of our brain, that 49 has been used a lot. So anyway, yeah.
Good job, Redeem. You know, you got shorted a cup because they probably come in 50, and you only had 49.
We did pour actually at the end. We said like, well, are we gonna do the 50th cup? And we gonna Shalana, yeah, let's do it. So we pour actually had a total of 50 cups there, and yeah. By the way, it was really good Shavuot, and I like it. We were talking earlier about being like in unity and different tribes coming together and things like that. So it was really nice to see different people coming together. Yeah. Hallelujah. Glory to him. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. All right. I'll go ahead and close this out with prayer. Abba, Father, we just thank you for today. Thank you for everybody that's here. Thank you for your word and your Torah and just the things that you revealed to us today, Father. And so I do lift up the coming service. Pray it should be with Pastor Joe. Pray that your spirit would minister to your people, Father. And just thank you once again for everything that you're doing for us. In the name of Yeshua, I pray. Amen. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. Thank you for those who are online that listened. We didn't have any video. Enjoy the rest of your Shabbat. Amen.